I don't know how that is going to play out because I know that it's very, very popular and millions of people. And where there are millions of people, there are millions of people who are very interested in continuing to do it regardless of whether it's legal or not. This is MedSpa Mayhem, the podcast all about the chaotic world of medical aesthetics. From Botox to lasers to IV bars, learn how to tell real versus fake, legal versus illegal, and safe versus potentially deadly. Hear the crazy stories inside the med spa world and find out what questions to ask and how to spot the people cutting corners. I'm your host, Dr. Kate D. Together, we explore the wild west of medicine that is the aesthetics industry. Hi, this is Dr. Kate D, and there has been a development in the Tirzepatide Saga that I wanted to talk to you about today. As you probably know, we've done 2 episodes previously about the use of Ozempic, which is semaglutide, is the generic name, and Mounjaro, which is Tirzepatide, as a generic name. And both of those have been used for weight loss in many different programs across the country. There are online sources. Weight Watchers is doing it now. Noom is doing it. All kinds of med spas are doing it. Individual doctors are doing it. And so these drugs have proved themselves very effective. And we started a program at my med spa a few months ago using Tirzepatide. Why? Because semaglutide's been around for longer, and semaglutide has a fair number of side effects, and I've never felt comfortable using semaglutide because of all the side effects. It's kind of, a lot of trade-offs with that. But when Tirzepatide came around, it has fewer side effects and actually more weight loss. And so it's way better tolerated. So we weighed this in my practice, and what is enabling all of these different places to offer this is because these different doctors across the country have been able to get compounded Tirzepatide because there is a shortage, or has been a national shortage of the drug. And because it's a new drug, it's under patent by the company that makes it. So Ozempic is made by a company called Novo Nordisk and is still in short supply. Novo Nordisk doesn't have enough factories to make it. And so it has been available because of an emergency FDA order that says there's a national shortage, and therefore compounding pharmacies are allowed to legally make that stuff. Okay. And then all these different, doctors and other kinds of facilities across the country can obtain it. And we've talked about the 2 different kinds of compounding pharmacies there are in the country, 503A and 503B. And suffice it to say that most of you, if you've had a compounded medication ever in your life, you probably got it from a 503A pharmacy. They will make a compounded medication specifically for you, and you get it from that compounding pharmacy. So if you've had hormones or any other drug, you've probably experienced that. Well, then there are these other 503B compounding pharmacies. Those are authorized by the FDA to produce drugs for doctors to dispense in their offices, so you can order them in bulk. This is kind of an additional cost savings, but also the advantage of those pharmacies is that they are basically held to the same standard of any drug manufacturer. So those facilities are inspected, and they have to prove that what's in the little vials is what's supposed to be there, and it's in the accurate amounts. And so it's much safer to get your drugs from a 503B compounding pharmacy. Anyway, so up until recently, Tirzepatide, Mounjaro, or Zepbound is the weight loss medication that is the name of it. So Eli Lilly makes that stuff, and Eli Lilly has been building factories or facilities and trying to up their supply. And they talked to the FDA last year and said, hey, we can make enough. You need to take this off of the shortage list. Why do they want to do that? Because they charge a lot of money for their drug, and it's their patent, and they don't want to have people essentially, you know, taking the revenue that they would have made by producing this drug. So that happened late in 2024, and the FDA all of a sudden announced there was no longer a shortage. And people across the country kind of went crazy because they're like, you've got to be kidding me. There's millions and millions of people getting this compounded stuff. The moment we, can't offer it to them, they're not going to be able to get it, which is really what has happened ever since, even with Ozempic too. Both Ozempic and Mounjaro are really in short supply. So when your doctor actually does prescribe it, so very few people actually meet criteria to be treated with these drugs in the first place. But even if you do, you go to the pharmacy, they don't have it. So anyway, there's a big lawsuit. So a bunch of the 503B compounding facilities got together and sued the FDA to say, no way, there's, millions and millions of people using these drugs. There's still a shortage. And so the FDA put that decision on hold. This was around early October of 24, and the lawsuit is still ongoing. Okay. So just recently, a couple weeks ago now, the FDA announced, oh, there really is no shortage anymore, and is giving a couple of deadlines for compounding pharmacies to continue to make and basically sell the drug they've already made. So for 503A compounding pharmacies, they now have until February 18th. As of this moment, as of this recording, they have till February 18th to distribute their remaining supply. Okay. 503B compounding facilities have been given a little bit longer runway. They have until March 19th, 2025 to distribute any compounded tirzepatide in their inventories. So what does this mean for med spas across the country? What does it mean for my practice? What does it mean for all the patients across the country who are using this drug to lose weight, for their diabetes, for all the various purposes? Well, right now, we don't 100% know, but we think that there's going to be a shift back to traditional prescribing. So first of all, there's probably going to be a big shift from tirzepatide to semaglutide, because semaglutide is still on the shortage list. The drag for anybody on tirzepatide is if you're on that and you like it, you're really probably not going to like semaglutide because there's more side effects, and nobody wants to go from a drug that's better to a drug that's worse. But I think a lot of people probably will, because it will still be available and it will be much, much, much cheaper. So the people who are on tirzepatide will be shifted towards the FDA-approved Mounjaro and Zepbound. Many of them will not be able to get that prescription because they don't necessarily qualify for the strict parameters for prescribing that. And my guess is that many of them will get the prescription, go to the pharmacy, and it won't be there. Or the wrong dose will be there. Or, there'll be half a dose and they'll have to double it. Or there'll be twice a dose and they'll have to figure out how to split it. Or there won't be any. Or they'll get on it and they'll be happy, and then they'll go back for a month's supply and it won't be available. This is my guess. So, but right now, this is what is supposed to happen. So clinics who are currently offering it are supposed to phase this down. And I don't know how that is going to play out, because I know that it's very, very popular and millions of people. And where there are millions of people, there are millions of people who are very interested in continuing to do it regardless of whether it's legal or not. So that is my big problem, is that I think that we won't be able to do it anymore, and we're going to be deciding whether to switch to semaglutide or whether to shut the program down, or we're not really sure. The reason that we can do it is because we charge way less than getting it from the pharmacy. Now, will there be coupons maybe that bring the price down so people can afford it? Maybe that'll happen. My guess is that the cost, if you are going to switch to Mounjaro or Zepbound from generic tirzepatide, cost is probably going to go way up. So my guess is that the shortage is going to rear its ugly head again, and indeed there will be, sort of validation that, oh my gosh, there really is a shortage, and the FDA might have to go back to declaring that. Currently, the lawsuit is still ongoing, and I don't know when that is supposed to be finalized or if it will be. And I don't personally understand whether the 503B pharmacies that are lodging the lawsuit, if they are going to be held to this decision or not. Now, the pharmacy that we have been using is one of those. And so it is very unclear to me right now. I think that clinics, doctors, businesses, Noom, Weight Watchers, I think everybody is probably scrambling around with their lawyers trying to figure out what's going to happen now, because I think there's going to be a lot of very unhappy people if this is no longer going to be available. I think what all these different vendors and clinics across the country have done is brought this drug, made it available to people who really couldn't have gotten it otherwise. And this all started with me because I had an acquaintance who was actually prescribed Ozempic, who went to the pharmacy to try to get it, and it was going to be $1,600 a month. And this was somebody who just could not afford that. And so they went without that until we started our program, and then that person was able to afford it. So what's going to happen to all those people, right? I personally, my experience with it is that I've lost about 20 pounds since trying it. I went on the very lowest dose to trial this before we ever, offered this to patients. And I managed to lose 20 pounds on the lowest dose, which is generally considered not even therapeutic, but for me, it certainly was. And I've been on maintenance ever since, and I've been able to keep that off. And as a physician, I hopefully will still have access to this drug, but I really fear for, anybody who really, really needs it. And I know some people out there might be rolling their eyes like, who really needs it? Just do it the old fashioned way. I think it's very, very difficult. I think that since I've been on this, I can tell you my experience. And that is that what this drug is it mimics a natural hormone that everybody has in their body that makes you feel full. And it just makes you feel like you're not all that hungry. And you can eat a smaller amount of food and feel full. And I actually think, having taken care of patients now in our clinic for several months and having experienced it myself, and having several friends who have always had a lower intake than I did. Always, it was no big deal for them. They were full, they stopped eating. And for me, it's like, oh, that's so yummy. I want to finish it, even if I'm full. Right. So, but I really truly believe that in the human condition, there's a spectrum of how much of this hormone is just flowing around people's bodies. And some people have a pretty high level, and it's not hard for them to just stop eating when they're full. And other people have a very low level, and they are always hungry, and they are just eating, eating, and because they're just sort of never sated. And then there's all people in between, right? I wouldn't say that I'm similar to that person who eats, constantly, but I definitely have a higher hunger than a lot of my acquaintances and friends. So I think that what this drug is doing is providing that and bringing people who really have a very low level of that natural hormone, bringing it kind of back into what is more kind of normal and physiologic and healthy for, adult humans. And it really enables you to eat normal, sort of ordinary portions that are enough for life sustaining, enough to keep your muscle, enough to have a lot of energy, but not so much that you just keep gaining fat. So I do think that tirzepatide is a really fantastic drug. I do think it's better than semaglutide. There are new ones being developed right now, and I have no doubt. I believe the next one is supposed to come out sometime in 2025. That remains to be seen. But I suspect that one will go straight into a shortage situation because of the way that these other drugs have proven themselves to be so useful. So if the new one has even fewer side effects with similar or better weight loss than tirzepatide, then that will probably be, the number one most popular drug. So we don't really know what's going to happen, but that's the state of affairs right now. I have meetings set up in the next couple weeks to sort out how this affects us, and we're just going to have to figure it out. I have no doubt that there are plenty of people who are planning to continue offering this kind of on the side in such a way that is probably not legal. I'm just not willing to do that myself. But as we've covered in this podcast, there are plenty of people in this country who are very much willing to offer illegal services and take money for it. So the jury's out on that. I have one other update for you all that's related. So we had 2 different episodes in the past about a Dr. Sagan here in Seattle who was sued by the Washington State Attorney General for a lot of fraudulent activity. Well, he is being sued again, this time by none other than Eli Lilly. And so apparently on his website, I had to confirm this, it's still there. He was claiming to have Manjaro and Zepbound and Tirzepatide on his website. He actually on his website also claims to have Ozempic and semaglutide. And the problem with that is that he was using marketing in order to claim that he had the real drugs from Eli Lilly when he didn't. So the court case was filed this summer. Eli Lilly plaintiff against Alderwood Surgical Center doing business as Allure Aesthetic, Gallery of Cosmetic Surgery, and Seattle Plastic Surgery. And basically they are suing him for trademark infringement, false advertising, false designation of origin, and unfair and deceptive trade practices, and they're demanding a jury trial. So that should be really interesting. I thought, by the time I'm reading this, because it's months later, that those claims would be off the website, but they're still there on his website. So I do think it's interesting. He was caught, he was fined $5 million, but, he didn't go to jail. He's still practicing medicine, and he's still doing this kind of fraudulent advertising on his website. So it'll be interesting to see how this lawsuit goes forward. My guess is Eli Lilly has a lot of money, and they will take this as far as they can possibly take it, and they probably won't shut him down, but they are going to make it so that he's really not going to be able to advertise the way he is right now. So that is the update on Dr. Sagan. And that is the update on what is currently the chaos around tirzepatide and weight loss with the GLP-1 agonists. Thank you so much for listening today. We'll be back next week with more MedSpa Mayhem. If you've learned something and like what we're doing, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating in your podcast app. If you have a question or a crazy story of your own you'd like to share, please send an email or voice recording to info@drkatedee.com. That's DRKATEDEE.com. Or reach us through the website, MedSpaMayhem.com. And read the book. MedSpa Mayhem is available everywhere books are sold. Thanks for listening. This has been MedSpa Mayhem with Dr. Kate D. We are so grateful you're listening, and we hope you've learned at least one fun or possibly disturbing fact today. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star review. And read the book. MedSpa Mayhem is available everywhere books are sold. Links and more can be found in the show notes and on medspamayhem.com.